Well, everyone, as you guys know, Samsung just announced and released their Samsung Galaxy S20 lineup. I will say for the majority of people, I think we were kind of underwhelmed. I mean, it brought so many features and everything, but it also increased the price tag, and I think they also did something really weird, which I don't wish they did. I was hoping they wouldn't have done it, and they actually did, and that really, when I look back at my older phones and I look at like my Samsung Galaxy from last year, my S10, S10e, and S10 Plus, I'm like, wow, Samsung really knocked it out of the park last year. And I just read a report recently that was like the Samsung Galaxy S20 sales are really low, and they basically blamed it on the coronavirus, which might be partially true. But I think it also has a lot to do with the pricing structure they did this year. They increased the prices like crazy, and they're not the only ones who've done it. Apple, all these other companies have done it too. But I think what made the Samsung Galaxy series so special last year was the pricing structure. It was still expensive phones, but they didn't really go too far crazy like what the Samsung Galaxy S20 lineup did. And when you look at a phone like the Samsung Galaxy S10e of last year, you kind of look at it and you realize, man, this phone was so special. This phone was so crazy last year. The fact that it really kind of added everything that the newer phones had, maybe besides the 1440p display and maybe like a triple camera setup. Other than that, it was a very, very killer phone for a very killer price. And it's sad because it was actually the last E device. The S10e I think was a great quality and great price, and they could have continued that, but no, they didn't release an S20e, which really, really sucks. I do understand they have their whole A series, and I own all the A series phones for the most part except for the A70 and whatever, but those phones they did a really, really good job at. But the S10e was, their whole E lineup could have been a killer lineup in my opinion, and now they kind of switched to the S10 Lite, which I think is not even as good as the S10e in my opinion. But from day one, dude, the S10e was a great phone, and it was a 10R competitor. That's really, really funny. A lot of people don't realize that. And this phone had, in my opinion, a lot more appealing features than an iPhone XR. I would probably still pick up an iPhone XR, but dude, even with the S10, it really wasn't missing out on too much between the S10 and the S10e. And the number one thing, like I've stated before, and probably the number one reason why most people picked it up, was the pricing structure. When this thing came out, this thing costed around like $750, which, at that time was, not a crazy amount of money. It's still a lot, but I saw a bunch of deals for this phone going for like $700. I think even like a month after this phone was released, that price on eBay went down to like $600, and I saw this thing depreciate like crazy, which wasn't really the best thing for the people who just bought the Samsung Galaxy S10e because they lost a lot of value. But for people who wanted to pick up a Samsung Galaxy S10e, they had that capability of picking one up for cheaper and cheaper literally every single day. And now, a whole year later, you can pick up a Galaxy S10e for less than $400 on Amazon, which is insane. That is a very, very good price to pay for a phone like this, especially when you consider everything you're getting with it. And you look at a phone like a Galaxy S20, that phone definitely has a lot going for it for sure. Like, yes, it's one of the best phones probably ever made, but the S10e I feel like still has so much going for it. And even though it misses out on a couple things, that price you're paying for it definitely is one thing that you're not going to regret, and that's a very good price to pay for a phone like this. Now, the build quality on this phone is on par with the Galaxy S10, and obviously the S10 and the S20 have so many similarities, but that S10e build quality is just so nice. It just feels so premium in the hand. It does not feel like a cheap phone at all. I know a lot of people might think it doesn't feel that great or whatever the case is, but that is not the case at all. This phone still feels very, very premium. There's no way to really mess up a glass on the front and glass on the back. I mean, once the phone has that, it pretty much feels very, very premium, and this phone definitely still feels like that. You can compare this thing to any phone in the future, and this thing will definitely still feel like it's held the test of time for sure. And also, the display on the front is very good. It's a 5.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display. Really, anything I've ever done with it the whole year later that I've owned it. I owned it first when it came out, and then I went a long time without owning one, and then I owned one again about like 3 months ago. And every time I pick this thing up, it just doesn't scream to me that it's a cheap panel or anything, because it's not. It's a 1080p panel, which really is still super respectable. I have a lot of respect for this panel, and it is that Infinity O display or whatever it is, and it doesn't have a notch. It doesn't have anything stupid with it, and I think that's one of the best features for sure. The display just does its best at the job that it can. Viewing angles are great, and like I said, even though it doesn't have an inbuilt fingerprint sensor or anything like that, the display is definitely one of those things that you're not going to feel like you have to update because of it. I've owned phones like the iPhone 11, the iPhone XR, and those phones, like, the biggest problem a lot of people have would definitely be that panel. Even though it's not bad, a lot of people do look at it like an 11 Pro Max's panel, and they're like, man, I really want to get a better panel, and you have that capability with the S10e. The panel on this thing is killer in my opinion, so the panel has definitely held up very, very well throughout the time that it's been out. And on top of that, speaking about the build quality, this thing has a microSD card slot, dude, which a lot of phones do not have in 2020. They do not have the capability of expanding the storage. You look at iPhones, you look at the Galaxy Note 10 base model, you look at a lot of other phones that are coming out, they do not have microSD card slots. But the Samsung Galaxy S10e does have that, which I'm so happy about, and that's one thing, you'll get this phone and you won't even have to worry about it at the end of the day. And the fingerprint sensor on this thing, like I said, even though it doesn't have the inbuilt fingerprint sensor, it makes up for it because the power button doubles as the fingerprint sensor, and that's actually a very good fingerprint sensor at the end of the day. I want you to count how many times I said fingerprint sensor in this video. But really, that's the basic outside of the phone, and besides the back, you have that dual camera setup, which I think is a very, very nice camera. I'll try to hit on the camera a little bit later. Actually, I probably won't. I'll just say it now, dude. The camera on this thing is very killer. It's a dual camera setup, and I think it's on par with the Galaxy S10 and obviously the S20. That lineup has way better cameras and everything, but at a certain point, I'm just like, how much more could you want from a camera? It does great. It does the job. And with the S10e, it does, the very, very good job at the camera quality that it does. And yeah, you're missing out on a camera lens that the S10 has, but I don't think a lot of people really care about it. It's not that big of a deal, and I do think that the S10e's camera is still very, very state-of-the-art for the day and age that we're in now. Like, it's very, very nice. You also have glass on the back, like I've stated, but you have that reverse wireless charging, which a lot of phones still don't have that capability, but on the S10e, you do have that capability, which is really, really cool. Now, that pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside on the hardware and why this phone is still super killer for the day and age that we're in, but also the software. And I did a whole separate video talking about the software on this phone, and I was so surprised of how well One UI 2 ran on a phone like this. Now, this phone isn't old, it's not bad or unpowerful or anything like that, but usually when software comes out, it kind of is more tailored to the newer phones, and the older phones kind of get like the back end of it, sometimes. But One UI 2 has been very, very good on my Samsung Galaxy S10e so far. So it's a smaller update, like I said, it's not a humongous giant one, it's kind of on like the lower end, but the new in terms of features and everything. But I will definitely tell you there's two features that really have changed my whole opinion on One UI for sure. And it's not just One UI related, it's Android 10. That's what it brought. The first one is dark mode. Some versions of dark mode have been out for a lot of other phone models, but this one is just universal across the board. And One UI 2 does bring dark mode. And it does make the phone feel, that much more premium and that much more, I guess, up to date, because a lot of other phones and, iOS has dark mode, all these other things have dark mode, and now Android has it natively built in, and it was definitely a very nice little touch. It's not a game changer. However, the one thing that is a game changer in my opinion would definitely be gestures. With One UI 2 on the Samsung Galaxy S10e, that has totally changed my whole entire perception on this phone. It has literally made this phone go from like a pretty decent phone to a very, very good phone just based off the gestures themselves. Now, to each their own. Some person might look at this and be like, okay, that's stupid. But if you look at all these other phones that are coming out, the iPhone 11 and all these other phones, they have pretty much removed the nav bar and all those things, and and the home button and all that. And even though this thing didn't have a home button, it did have that nav bar on the bottom, which you could have turned off in One UI 1, but it wasn't that great. It wasn't intuitive. Now with One UI 2, it does bring that full-on gesture design, which is so awesome, and I love that. If you are on One UI 2 and you haven't enabled it, I would highly recommend you to do it. It's definitely one of my favorite features of this phone for sure now, and it definitely has made this phone feel that much more premium. And on top of that, it's also getting another version of software as well, so it's going to be insane. This phone's going to last for a long time still, even after this, and hopefully there will be a root out for this thing, maybe sometime for the Snapdragon versions that I have. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens, but definitely in terms of the battery life, but definitely in terms of the software and the UI of it, it still has held up very, very well. It doesn't feel like a cheap phone at all in terms of the software. Now, ending it off with the battery life, as I've said before, dude, it's a very, very decent battery life, 3100 mAh. It's not the best, but this phone doesn't have like a 120Hz refresh rate screen. It's not like a 1440p AMOLED display that has like crazy high levels of brightness and all that. It's just a very basic phone. It's just a very basic phone at the end of the day, and it does bring quite a bit of quality, and because of that, the battery life I feel like has been pretty decent as well. So if you're going to go, multiple days, I don't know about that. I mean, you probably could. 3100 mAh isn't a crazy sized battery, but like I said, it definitely does get the job done at the end of the day. So overall, I think the Samsung Galaxy S10e is an amazing phone. If you're in the market, I would definitely recommend you to pick it up if it's, between this phone or S20. I mean, obviously pick up the S20, but I do think the S10e is the way to go for a majority of people, and especially at that price tag, it's very, very appealing. If you want to pick one up, like I've stated earlier on in this video, I'll find that one on Amazon for like less than $400, and I'll link it down in the description so you can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.